You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 59 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. It is with a very heavy heart that we announce some very sad news. Matt Lowe is with us today.
What up?
And the happiest person in Georgia, Jessica Salaji.
Hello, I'm so excited, full of joy. My spirit is just free. Legislature's out.
Right.
Matt, how was your week?
It was good. It was busy, but it was good.
Jessica,
that's all I got.
Yeah, Jessica, I pretty much know that you're happy.
I am. It's like the aftermath right now where I have to do all my analysis where I do like how reps voted over session and the percentage of the time they voted no and things like that. But just knowing that there's just no more for a while, it's a huge relief.
Well, this is our Sine Die special edition, or as we like to call it in Georgia, Sine Die.
I was like, where's he going with this?
I was trying to figure out if that was Spanish for 59. I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
That is the Latin pronunciation of Sine Die. As far as we know anyway, because it's a dead language no one's heard in over 1,000 years.
Right.
So we're going to go through some bills quickly and spend a little more time on some than others. The top of the list is one that we've talked about a lot and came in at the quite literal last hour, is 324, the In-State Cultivation Safe Access Act, sponsored by Micah Gravely. There were some changes that the Senate put in, and this is going to be a less than perfect version of the bill that was less than perfect to begin with.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, the original bill, while well-intentioned, was by no means like a free market approach or even a market approach. I mean, it was pretty bad. But then throughout session, I mean, it soared out of the House, and the fate of it in the Senate was very, I guess, at risk, because Jeff Duncan made it clear that he wanted to do other things like truck it in or fly it in from other states or give it only to the universities or things like that. So what they ended up with is better from where they thought it was going to be under Duncan and Calzert. But the final one coming out of conference committee, which Calzert was in the conference committee and actually voted against it because he said that people overdose on cannabis oil all the time and it's dangerous.
What?
Yes, he did say that from the well of the House, speaking at 11 o'clock at night. But this final version heavily involves universities. It doesn't give any dispensary licenses unless the pharmacies don't do it. It creates the commission like they talked about and gives the commission heavy oversight for, delegating tasks and rules and regulations. It requires, well, I'll come back to that. It gives a cap of basically 9.5 acres in the whole state, which is going to create a problem. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but gives 6 commercial licenses total, some big, some small, and then the rhetoric is that it requires 20% minority participation, but if you read the bill, it doesn't say shall, it says should, which is very different in legal terms. And
yes, it is.
I don't know if people were paying attention, because it was 11 o'clock in the Senate or 10 o'clock in the Senate and 11:20 in the House or what, but I mean, saying you should have 20% minority participation instead of shall, I don't think this is what they think it is.
Right. It's a suggestion now.
I still don't think it was right to put that in there because we don't do that with any other industry, and we don't do that with we just don't do that. That's not what the law is for. So I don't even like that the recommendation is in there, or whatever you want to call it, the urging language. But it'll be interesting to see how that part plays out and the fights that come from that, and if it comes back next year.
My guess is that is a buyout to the Senate Democrats because they could not get enough Republican votes in the Senate to make it happen.
Yeah, if you look at the final vote, I mean, there were mostly Republicans that voted no.
Like my Senator, Bill Heath. That was never a yes. And, of course, it's the same guy that cried on the House of the Senate when talking about alcohol sales on Sunday.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he said, Matt, you gotta help me out here. Was it the domestic violence and rape would go up if they sold alcohol on Sunday?
I'm going to have to look it up. There's so much crap that he said that was just like, it wasn't even, like how a politician a lot of times will kind of skirt the edges of true. This wasn't even close, right? He was so way the hell out in left field with the stuff he was making up.
Well, here's the thing. He wasn't lying. He's delusional enough to believe that. Now he's had one hell of a session because he voted against sunshine laws with political donations. He sponsored a red flag bill, anti-Second Amendment, also anti-Fourth Amendment. I mean, he has not had a good session from the limited government standpoint.
He voted against recess.
He voted against kids having 30 minutes of recess a day.
Did you know that he's Kemp's brother-in-law?
No, I did not.
Say that again.
I was told. I'm sorry, we're confusing people. Bill Calzert.
Okay.
Bill Calzert is the one who was calling it, I get those two confused, my bad, not Heath. Bill Calzert, the one that said that you overdose on CBD oil, is Brian Kemp's brother-in-law, which is interesting that he went to the well to speak against it when Kemp announced his support at the very end, saying, yes, I'm going to sign this if you do this.
Huh.
Family feud.
I don't think so. I think it's political theater for the both of them.
We will suck anyway.
Well.
So anyway, they'll be growing. I think what is the timeline? They have to be actually ready to cultivate by 2021. Alan Peake was in the Capitol cheering from the gallery. I think he's going to be pushing for a license, which Renee Unterman made it pretty clear she was against. But we'll see. $200,000 for a first-year license and $1.5 million in cash bond.
So here's one thing that Bill Heath did say in speaking against the Sunday alcohol sales bill was that he believed that lawmakers should look out for the interest of, quote, those who truly cannot look out for themselves.
What a piece of
Don't hold back, Jessica.
First of all, that's not the role of government, but...
Right?
And I know he doesn't like alcohol or the devil's lettuce because it makes Jesus cry. But, he's what, 6'7"?
Yeah, 6'7", 6'8". He's tall.
I didn't know they stacked that high.
They do in Bremen.
I just want to say something about the in-state cultivation. I think that, we're talking about a best bill. I think that we are all saying that relatively because we appreciate that the people won't have to break laws to get stuff and they can access it. It's not ideal and it still needs reform. So I don't want to condone the bill the way it started or the way it ended. But I think we are all happy for the people who will have access.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. Ultimately, it could be a lot better. But
well, yeah. Well, ultimately, look.
This is almost like, well, at least they get something, and they're not making felons of themselves now.
Well, it's much like sausage. It was a disgusting process. full of a bunch of crap. But at the end, there's something we can swallow, and these families can have access without becoming, federal felons for moving that stuff across state lines. So I don't know how the hell you're going to get six producers to share 9 acres.
Right?
That's it? 9 acres total?
9.5 acres in the whole state. 400,000 square feet. That's going to drive the cost up when you're paying $200,000 for a license.
Of course it is.
So that'll probably end up being like Michigan or something where the black market's cheaper. But at least the people who, like, I know people who need to have seed to sale tracking so that they can still participate in like FDA trials for cancer treatment and things like that. If they have the in-state cultivation, they'll pay the price to be able to do that versus, someone with PTSD who's like, I'm still going to get it off the black market.
Right. Now, I bet what you'll see is the grow houses will be obviously all indoors, and you'll see multi-level grow houses.
Man, I don't know if multi-level... I don't know. That's going to be interesting as far as how the law is read, as far as if it's square footage of actual growing space, and in which case if you have a 10,000 square foot warehouse, and if you double it, it's still 20,000 square feet of grow area. It's going to be indoors because that is the only way to control the growth and the introduction of the male plant to the female plant, all the stuff the science that went into making pot way too potent.
Right.
For, anybody my age. So all the science that went into it, like in Denver, you can't find warehouse space anymore because it's full of pot plants.
Right.
And I think we'll see in the future, we'll see the law change. So they'll add 5 acres at a time, and then that's just what's going to happen. But
right. Whoops.
The licensing, the licensing fees of $200,000 is it's going to take Georgians out of it, and they're going to bring somebody from Colorado, a corporation from Colorado that already has it down here to do it.
Right.
And limiting the licenses just means that people who know no politicians will be the ones who get it. Alan Peake will get it, which is fine. But if you're Ralston's buddy, you'll get your ticket punched. Anyway, way to be really gloomy on our favorite bill.
Right.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that people know that we are not condoning big government.
I was talking about me, Jessica.
Okay, good.
Do you have a guilty conscience over there?
Yes.
I know you get so beat up, you just assume I was talking about you.
Yes.
All right, HB 83. Let's go back to that. It's by Demetrius Douglas. It is the K-5 recess bill. We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
I'm just happy that this passed. It's just positive, and it's a Democrat bill, and I understand that there's a local control aspect of it, but I think it's good, and so it's cheerful. It's recess.
Right.
Anybody who's talking about local control, I have a cure. Stop taking state and federal funds and fund your own school.
Right. Then you can do what you want at recess.
Yeah, you can do what you want. You can do anything you want. Don't worry about state accreditation. Tell the state to shove it and be a community unto yourself and educate your own kids.
And then let us know how it works out.
And probably with a really good education.
Right.
Matt, what were you going to say before I stepped all over you?
No, I think that was probably it.
just suck the air out of the room.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, let's move on. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Training requirements for public employees in charge of public funds. HB 196. Tommy Benton or Benton.
So Benton's right, not Benton. But that's okay. This one is so minor, but I think it's just good. It's for public employees who have fiduciary duties in government, and especially when they're responsible for retirement programs and things like that. They have to take public training, and I think if someone's going to be corrupt, they're going to be corrupt regardless of the training. But I just like that it's in place and that our public employees aren't getting a pass, and we're just hoping that they're the best and turning a blind eye. So that's all.
Maybe something like that would have stopped the debacle at Oak Park.
Maybe.
Look, it sounds so common sense to me that you should have some basic training before someone hands you millions of dollars of the people's trust. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what? I'm good with this one. I actually moved that one, and probably I file that under, do we really need a damn law? And apparently the answer is yes.
Right.
Another one that we like, the rape kit. God, I really shouldn't say we like, then go in with rape. We approve of this legislation. Rape kit retention policies increased. House Bill 282, Scott Holcomb.
So Scott Holcomb's been a huge advocate for justice reform. He did rape kit testing for the GBI, the one that Renee Unterman blocked several years ago and got all the national attention for. He's been an advocate for, he's a Democrat, but he's super moderate and for the most part brings forward really good legislation that's balanced. And this basically requires that law enforcement agencies keep rape kits until the cases are solved or until
everyone's dead.
Yeah, and I think there's something about 50 years in there. I forget how it plays in, but it's basically like until the cases are solved, because the law enforcement agencies weren't retaining them properly, and then you'd have evidence come forward or someone who could have been fitting more than one crime, and they went to test the kits and they weren't kept properly, or someone had thrown them away, and you're missing out on opportunities to solve cases. And so this might add a little cost to some agencies, but I think in the long run it's a good thing.
And Matt, guess who learned her lesson in the Senate?
Who?
Renee Unterman sponsored it in the Senate.
She sure did. Which I think is another indicator that she's really considering Georgia 7.
You think?
Because, who could afford to take another browbeating by all of the media in every corner of the country over blocking rape kit stuff again? No, we don't want law enforcement to keep evidence.
Yeah, she didn't just vote yes. She sponsored it on the Senate side.
Right.
She learned her lesson. She's going to be out front on this one. And look, I support the legislation. I know she takes a pretty good beating around here. Good job. Good job. Yeah,
I think I wouldn't say good job. I'd say a broken clock is right twice a day, and this is her first day. She's probably got another one.
Well, as someone who's trained dogs before, you've got to say, good girl. Here's your treat. You didn't tinkle on the carpet. You went outside. Good girl.
She's going to sue you.
Good.
These opinions are our own, and that is Dave's opinion, and none of these are all on Georgia's opinion.
These are absolutely all on Georgia's opinion. But no, I don't mean that for Renee specifically. I was talking about, I send emails to my legislators, and it is very much like that. It's like having an employee. You can't just give negative feedback. You need to say, hey, listen, I really appreciate your vote on that issue. This one, I didn't like so much. You can't just give negative reinforcement all the time. You got to say, look, this is a win for you. This is good. Thank you.
You do, but you have to also be careful not to put them too far on a pedestal, because at the end of the day, they're servants.
No, they're in my employ.
Right.
No, absolutely.
It's a balance.
Yeah, they're in my employ. It's the same way I would treat my employees. Is when you do good, you slap them on the back and you give them praise in public. And when they're not, you make sure they know that you're not happy about it. Moving on. HB 345, Sharon Cooper. Prohibition on shackling female inmates who are pregnant. My ineloquencies make you so happy.
So this one is another one of those where you're like, why do we need a law for this? you would think that pregnant women who are, already waddling wouldn't be shackled on their ankles and have their hands behind their back when they're being moved throughout a prison or a jail, but that wasn't the case. And so this was a bill. It passed unanimously in the House, and the Senate prohibits, it did not pass unanimously in the Senate. Randy Robertson from Columbus voted against it, and I'm judging him a little bit for it. But
what was his reason?
He has a law enforcement background, which he tells everyone every single time he talks about anything. Like, he talks about seatbelts, and he's like, well, I have an FOP background, and, I talk to these people, and I'm talking to these people in law enforcement, and my experience in law enforcement.
Oh, God, Matt, as a veteran.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So he voted against it. So it prohibits the shackling and handcuffing of pregnant women in the third trimester. It prohibits solitary for those women in the third trimester, and then it prohibits shackling them while they're giving birth and immediate postpartum, which I just don't think that's that unreasonable. And there was this whole conversation from Randy and his crowd about officer safety and medical safety. It still allows a doctor to use medical restraints, which are not nearly as oppressive as handcuffs and metal bars between your legs.
So, is having babies in prison that big of a damn deal?
I mean, it's more common than it should be, but what do you, from a liability standpoint, what happens when you have a woman with a bar between her ankles and her legs shackled and her hands tied behind her back and she starts to fall? Right.
No, I get that. I guess I kind of look at it from the perspective that, one, and I hate to use the term common sense because I don't think common sense exists, but this strikes me as, some common sense stuff,
Sure.
But then I'm just shocked that there's enough babies being born in prison or jail that this had to be addressed, with a law.
Well, this also prohibits pregnant women during the second and third trimester from being ordered to squat and cough, which is a common way to make sure that an inmate doesn't have anything in their prison wallet.
Right.
And they can't be examined in the entertainment center by anybody but a professional. So
entertainment center.
And I think we all have the picture of a woman who's waddling down, but there's I don't know. I think I'm with you, Matt. I don't think this is a big enough problem that it needed a law. But there had to be some abuse somewhere where.
Yeah, there's something that precipitated it.
Yeah, there's a catalyst. I mean, there's some woman was giving birth with shackles on the stirrups and her hands behind her, that brought this law about.
Which I think most people can agree that should never happen. It shouldn't need a law. It should be a policy in the Department of Corrections.
That happens, and that immediately should have been a civil case against that warden, probably a private prison. I don't know. I can't see. Maybe I've got too much humanity. I can't see doing that to. I can't see doing that to another human being while trying to give birth. But then again, I guess I have too much humanity.
If it stops this happening from one woman, I'm pleased.
Is that how we're writing laws now?
No, I'm just saying there is an actual benefit here.
I know. I'm just teasing you.
And it does restrict the government, so.
It does. And I'm going to stop teasing you because people come to your defense that have no perspective of why I'm teasing you.
Mm-hmm. They just think you're a jerk.
Yeah, they just think that I'm just coming out of nowhere and just poking at this poor little girl. All right. Speaking of civil cases, HB 311 by Andy Welch, permission to sue the government.
Did you know you needed permission?
I did, actually.
I did too, and I've always I'm kind of happy to see this one. I would move that one to the top.
Yeah.
Because
screw the kids that need cannabis and the poor pregnant women. Let's move this one to the top.
Let's sue everyone. Yeah. So this actually came about because someone tried to sue Governor Deal and they couldn't. They tried to sue the state, so someone sued Governor Deal personally. So of course, we like this bill, but of course it came about because of someone wanting to protect former Governor Deal.
Right.
So I agree that people should be able to go to the courthouse and sue for unconstitutional local and state ordinances. I just wish it wasn't happening because, And what happened is that the Supreme Court had ruled that the General Assembly has to waive sovereign immunity to allow people to sue their government, which seems totally contradictory to the very premise of the United States of America. But I mean, what do I know?
Right. We have a whole amendment here about the ability to overthrow them through force, but we can't sue them in the court.
Right. For injunction, not even for money. Just
right.
Yeah, give me that right. I'm going to sue you. No, you're not. Well, I guess I'm not. It's like the Jedi mind trick. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, yeah, good one. Win. Good job, Andy.
Yeah, that's the least worst thing he's ever done.
The carrot and the stick. Good boy. Good boy. Who's a good legislator? Who's a good legislator? Yes, you are. SB 117, Ellis Black, stopgap for the retirement system.
This one's just minor tweaking, but basically people were cashing out on their retirement and they weren't having, they were buying it out and they weren't having to pay the full actuarial costs, and it was costing the state $20 million a year. And so they're requiring that the people who buy them out have to either pay it out all at once or set it up on a payment plan to pay the full cost so the state isn't footing the bill and subsidizing your buyout. So, cost savings. It's the only cost savings that was passed this year. They had a bill that reduced the TVA tax ad valorem, and they screwed it up in the Senate and sent it back, and it passed, so that one was X'd out. This is the only piece of legislation out of some 400 votes that reduces fees or fines or something.
Really? And it's only $20 million.
Yeah, right. I know. When they said $20 million, I was like, that's not even that much. What kind of world do we live in that you're like, it's a drop in the bucket?
Well, it's because it's not my money. I mean, in a way it is, but that full $20 million isn't mine. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's a weird thing, at work. I buy stuff all the time, and it's nothing to spend, $15,000 or $20,000 all at once. And it's a weird mindset. You get back home, and I'm dealing with a much smaller budget at the house, and I have to keep that in mind. But
are you? Because we were talking about your need to buy a new computer if it takes that long to restart before coming onto the podcast. I can believe that this is the only cost savings. It's just sad.
I'm sure it got negated somewhere.
Well, of course it did. But we've got all these, and I'm going to put big air quotes around conservatives. They're supposed to be small government conservatives, and all they want to do is go to the Capitol and spin like a sailor pulling into a port, and usually on the same stuff. I don't know. That's everybody gets elected on this idea of being fiscally conservative, and nobody conserves a damn thing.
No.
But let's end this on a cheery note. Good job, Ellis Black. Good boy. Thank you for saving the state something and doing something right and acting as a fiduciary for the taxpayers and being a proper steward of the taxpayers' money. Now, let's roll up the newspaper and get ready to smack some noses, because these are the worst bills that passed. SB 15, John Alber's school safety bill.
I can't remember if we talked about this one or not on the podcast earlier this year, but this is the bill that started to talk to regulate private schools and public schools, require that they have a school safety plan. I was against it because, of course, it regulated private schools, but it created a safety plan organizer, and that person was someone in the community, not a school employee, and they were supposed to get a tax credit for their service to the local school system. So that's how the bill started. What it ended up being is a mandatory reporting requirement for principals when there is a suspicion of criminal activity. Initially, it was supposed to be for violent activity, but the language was for criminal and violent activity, which means that principals have to contact law enforcement and the GBI and other entities to let them know when there's criminal activity, like, I don't know, weed in the bathroom or a fight at school or any type of criminal behavior. And you're basically creating a streamlined process of putting juveniles in the system.
Suspicion of a crime.
Suspicion.
How are you supposed to build any sort of trust between administration and students if your principal's a cop?
Well, that, and why did you so poorly define violent activity? Because this whole thing, school safety plan, started over the idea of mass shootings and, active shooter situations and things like that. Why wouldn't you define violent activity as something with a weapon, something where we already have zero tolerance, instead of violent activity? That could be me punching someone in the face. That's violent.
Most certainly is. Which, I catch hell for this every time I say it. There need to be a little more punches thrown in schools to handle bullies. Matt, you're the first one to teach your kids because, you grew up, you and I are, the same age for another couple hours. If you get a bully, you punch him in the damn face. Yep. In fact, there used to be after school specials about how to deal with bullies, and you would punch them in the face. Right. I don't know. I mean, look, it's going to get signed. I don't know. Matt, take it away. You're the only person with kids that actually has any skin in this game.
No, I hate anything where you start getting law enforcement involved with kids at school, because it's just, you're crossing a line because here's what's going to happen, right? Is now we have cops in every school. I don't know if every school, in your part of the county or your part of the state, has resource officers or not, but ours do. There's a Paulding County Sheriff deputy assigned to every school, and I remember years ago, man, when Maddox was, I don't know, kindergarten or first grade, and he drew a picture of a gun. And it was this little kindergarten arms race thing, right? Where he was sitting across the table from another kid, and they were drawing different things, and ultimately, it wound up a big cannon or something like that. They're banging, shooting each other with their little paper, and the principal called me and said, "Well, I had the sheriff deputy talk to him, and I lost my mind." Mm-hmm. I guess to bring it back here, I just really have a problem with using law enforcement officers in the school system like that as a form of, because it's going to get where they're not gonna just arrest them for criminal or whatever. They're gonna have a talking to, and then they're gonna go back to class, and now you've just it's bad.
What happened to calling the parents in and everyone and getting suspended from school for a period of time and having to do community service at your school and then getting a whooping at home?
The whooping at home is what happened.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Right.
Right.
But I mean,
well,
the
that's
fact
because
that
the parents get hauled off to jail and defects gets called.
Well, yeah, and we could go like way down this rabbit hole, and I get that, but like basically what they're again saying, per usual, is that the state should step in and raise your kids.
Yep.
Well, Matt, to correct you on that, I've had this conversation with a DA out here. You do not go to jail for whipping your kid's ass out here, not even for leaving a mark. You go to jail if you whip them for no reason.
Right.
If you wake up on Monday morning, beat your kids just to remind them what's going to happen the rest of the week, go to jail. Your kid does something in school, gets suspended in school, you beat his ass, not in trouble. So
right.
the law hasn't gotten to that point yet. I think that's a bit of a hyperbole and maybe a paranoia that parents have.
It depends on
location. I know
school you're in, because me personally, when I was married to my ex-wife, her daughter, my stepdaughter, was extremely mentally handicapped, special needs. She was self-injurious, nonverbal, and she would. Man, I saw her. Like, she kept a broken nose. She's blind in one eye from hitting herself in the side of the head so much. I've seen her break her arm on her face, kind of thing. And we went through a big thing with the Marcus Institute back before Emory got it, and or Choa. And they taught us all kinds of stuff about how to hold her and restrain her. And even then, I was 200 pounds and she was, 60, and I would be pouring sweat. Usually bleeding because she would get a hold of my arms with her teeth. But that, something like that may happen in the middle of Walmart or Kroger or wherever. And you have to address it then. And there would be times that I'm having to restrain this child and physically fight off some passerby dumbass who felt it was appropriate for them to come at me over it. And I had school systems called defects on us with her several times. And that was Cobb.
Yeah, well, it is hard to tell people two things. One, mind your own business. And two, if you see a child in danger, step in. They just don't. Right. They just didn't understand. But yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, that's a specific situation that does happen. I know a family that has a padded room, and they have a kid who is, the mom is 80 pounds soaking wet, and and they've got a service dog, and when he goes into when the boy who is now 18 but doesn't have the mind of an 18-year-old, when he goes into a rage, this is way off friggin' topic, goes into a rage, all she can do is just get him in the room and close the door, because there's no way that an 80-pound woman can restrain a 160-pound 18-year-old boy.
Right.
But that's we're way off topic on this one. It's just, sorry, Jessica.
It's too much. It's just too much. You don't need the state having a pipeline to get kids in the system. I don't care if you're not arresting them. I don't care if you're just making a report. You're putting them in the system. You're teaching them that the law has to handle everything and that people can't settle things among themselves, and that there's the first step between. I mean, it's just a bad idea, and I don't like it.
And I'm going to put my liberal hat on for a second. What does that teach children about police officers? In all these communities that we're trying to teach them that police officers are not the enemy. They're there to help you. They're not there to punish you. If you need help, go find a police officer. And all these communities that we're having problems with, with the relationship with police departments, now they're the bad guy, the enforcer at school. The parents will call. I mean, I don't think this did the police officers any favors either by making the heavy at school.
Right.
Now the principal doesn't have to be the one to paddle you. He can go, I don't know, I turned it over to the police.
Right.
All right, let's move on. we're eating up time fast. We're worse than the damn legislature. Hemp.
So
go ahead.
Yeah.
Hemp cultivation. No. Senate Bill 213, John Corbett. This is a big steaming pile of crap. Go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, it's everything we've already talked about. It didn't change. It's just garbage that passed the Senate, and it's headed to Kemp's desk, and I'm sure it'll be signed, and it's just the strictest in the nation and no good for business. Next.
Matt, how much hemp do you have to smoke to get you high?
I don't think you can.
Right, all of it. All of it. It does not get you high. It is the cousin of marijuana. It does not have THC or such a small... It has less THC than a banana peel.
You know what does have enough THC to get you high?
Do tell.
Chocolate. You got to eat a pound of it, and it's only good for about 3 seconds, but it's there.
I'm letting Ed Setzler know immediately.
Did what?
I'm going to let Ed Setzler know immediately.
That gives a whole new meaning to death by chocolate, eh? All right. Speaking of pile of crap, Patients First Act, spit it. Senate Bill 106. I like how you put your notes here. Brian Kemp / Blake Tillery.
Well, this was Brian Kemp's bill that he had his floor leaders cover, and I just hated that he did that, and he was sending out press releases through the entire session, like every time it passed out of committee, out of the Senate, out of the House committee, out of the House floor, and headed to his desk. The whole thing, blow by blow. It's Medicaid expansion. It's everything that we voted against with Stacey Abrams, except that it's not full Medicaid expansion. It's giving the governor the authority to pay someone $1 million to be a consultant, and then they'll decide what's best for Georgia.
Matt, which district does Brian Kemp represent in the Senate?
He doesn't.
Oh, maybe he should shut his damn mouth.
Right?
Get back in your box.
Reach.
Amen, sister. Look, I understand the bully pulpit.
No, I don't understand the bully pulpit.
Well,
you're the executor. Sit there and wait.
Like Johnny Bench waiting on a pinch. Okay, Johnny Bench was a catcher. But, he has enough on his plate. There was a song by Hank Williams Sr. called Mind Your Own Business. If you mind your own business, you won't have time to mind mine.
I love that song.
Yeah, if he just focuses on what the executive needs to do, he wouldn't have time to meddle in the affairs of the legislative branch. Mm-hmm. My opinion.
But here we are.
I welcome yours. Matt, isn't this what we rejected several times by electing, quote, Republicans, end quote?
I guess not.
I describe myself as a Republicarian, and I guess the new thing is Republicrats, because they're starting to look a lot like the Dems.
Unless that ends in a P instead of a T, I don't agree.
What's that?
Republicrats.
Sorry, I was going Republic Fats. I was like, man, that's like way too urban for me.
Oh man, it's hard being on the podcast with old people.
Right?
So uncool. And I get older in a few hours. Good God. But yeah, look, it's a repackaged, renamed, shined up version
sandwich.
Of. Oh yeah, it's a polished turd.
And we're all gonna take a bite of it.
Yeah, it's a polished turd. Here's the thing: the taste is the same. It's Medicare expansion. It is exactly what Stacey Abrams ran on, and repackaged, renamed, shined up, and passed off to the people of Georgia, who are going to eat it and thank him for being so conservative. And there were several other bills that passed. We just don't have time to get to them all. But we need to look at the most expensive bill that passed, which is the heartbeat bill, HB 481 by Ed Setzler.
So We talked about this as it moved through the House. The final passage was much like we talked about on the previous episode of 6 weeks, heartbeat, exceptions for rape and incest if you file a police report, and life of the mother. And what they added in the Senate, after all the outrage from the Democrats, was a judge can order child support to be paid at the detection of a heartbeat. And then, of course, there's the tax credit as well, which I think amounts to $243 a year. But I don't know if you guys saw, but North Carolina's 20-week abortion ban, which is what Georgia's current law was overturned just a week or two ago, which I think is going to present an interesting legal battle for Georgia trying to move this back so far when a federal court just overturned 20 weeks.
I did see that because I follow All on Georgia. Excellent. I think the line that you have in the article that came out last week is probably the most moderated, intelligent thing you can possibly say about the argument is, whether you support the bill or you oppose it, there's no arguing that the law will be changed in court, and that's going to be expensive.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to not be very popular here. If you want to challenge Roe v. Wade, I'm all for it. Go and challenge it. Take it head on and challenge it. These nickel and dime bills that don't actually challenge the ruling, keep getting knocked down, are nothing but feel-good measures that these politicians know will never go into effect.
When most people don't know, but when the state loses, they have to pay the legal fees of the person who challenges it. And the groups that are challenging are the ACLU and the Planned Parenthood action groups. And in states like Indiana, under Governor Mike Pence, when he was there, I think they paid out like $600,000 to Planned Parenthood to overturn their bill. Kentucky has paid out money. Arkansas paid out money and ended up they're trying to shoot for 16 weeks instead of 6. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees that you have to pay for yourself, and then you have to pay for the party that brought the grievance against you because of the law.
And let me throw this out there as, if anybody is anti-abortion, when Planned Parenthood wins and their internal attorneys win the case, where do you think that $600,000 goes? It goes,
you're empowering them.
Right, it goes to Planned Parenthood, to bolster Planned Parenthood. And what do they do with that money? They go and they give it to pro-choice, pro-Planned Parenthood politicians. So when we take on laws that we are reasonably sure are going to be overturned, and we're going to spend time, money, and effort in court defending, after precedent has already been set up, we're going to fund exactly what we're supposedly against.
I've never thought that I would be advocating against this bill the way that I have over the last 3 months. And I've taken a lot of heat for it, but I just, from the bottom of my heart, do not believe that it's fiscally responsible, and it's not the proper venue to do this. Like you said, if you want to go for Roe v. Wade, go for Roe v. Wade. Go that pathway. Don't do this.
Right. I think it's, and Matt, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on you on this, and I know I'm going to take slings and arrows too, is go after the ruling. Have the intellectual integrity to go after the ruling instead of trying to chip it away. And that's just, I guess that's just the bully in me, is I'd rather take somebody head on rather than, take these little glancing blows. Is go in, argue the case, say since 1973, am I right? Since 1973, new facts have arisen, and this is our case. It wins, it doesn't win. You go to the Supreme Court and you make your argument. The case between 6 and 20 weeks. Look, it's not if I like or dislike this law, and I told you before I supported the law in principle, but I do not support the state of Georgia dropping $1 million that could go to pay off to do so much, let alone lower the tax rate to the citizens of Georgia on a case that, honestly, the attorneys that are up there under the Gold Dome know damn well that this will get signed. It'll go into law July 1st. July 1st at noon, there'll be an injunction.
Right. Kentucky's was signed on a Friday, and it was blocked within minutes. Like, the judge they had the injunction there ready.
Yeah, I kind of thought my statement about noon was hyperbole. It doesn't take 12 hours; it takes minutes.
Right.
In which case, nothing will change except for the coffers in the state of Georgia.
But you can't have that conversation with the general public. The general public is angry about abortion or pro-choice, and they can't see the policy side of things and the fiscal side of things. That hasn't been a conversation at all.
Well, I think the biggest problem is the failure of the legal system here to accurately define life. And I know why they haven't, because the minute they do that, it becomes like every state in the nation has laws that are going to, be taken off the books or whatever. But that's really where this has to go.
Well, right. As far as, staying in your box, that has to be left to the third branch, the equal branch of government. That's the judicial branch, and challenge it there and work on it there. Not to mention the time, money, and effort that's spent to pass this law. And again, I'm a pro-life guy. That's just where I am. But I'm also somebody who knows that passing feel-good laws, regardless of how I feel about an issue, is pointless because the damn court is going to put an injunction on it.
Right.
They might as well have passed a law saying we're going to outlaw abortion the minute Roe v. Wade is overturned. At least that wouldn't have cost us any money.
Right.
Yeah.
That you can argue on it, or if I don't know, we're going to beat this one to death, and I don't want to re-argue the case of Roe v. Wade or the 6 week, because what we're talking about is the fiscal avenue of it and how much it's going to cost the taxpayers of the state who are already taxed enough.
Right. Nah, this is just campaign mailer fodder. That's all.
Oh, absolutely it is.
Look what I did.
Look what I did. And it's not even that. It's the other way, is going to the folks that vote against it and saying, that's what it is. It's to try to flip seats to ours.
So just skip the last two.
Okay. Now we're going to get in real quick to some of the bad bills that failed. HB 545, Tom McCall, regulating legal recourse on property owners.
So this bill was in an effort to protect big agriculture businesses. They announced that. They said that we should protect the state's number one industry. And they wanted to prohibit people who are impacted by things people do on their own property that affects their property from bringing a suit in court or doing things to take action against it and seek recourse. So, if you do something to damage my crops or taint my water, or even I don't know. There's so many things that you could do. But if what you're doing on your property negatively impacts my property, this would limit the recourse that small private property owners and smaller agriculture operations would have. So a lot of environmental groups oppose this. which I don't usually side with them, but I'm always on the side of the landowner and private property rights. So that is the premise of property rights. You can't harm my property.
Right.
Matt, what you got?
Nothing. She wrapped that up pretty good.
Beautiful. Transit overhaul. HB 511. Kevin Tanner.
So this one was a big government option, but they wanted to incentivize the private sector to do things, but it was a zombie bill and a Christmas tree bill. By the time it got done, they had added a jet fuel exemption, rideshare excise tax, MARTA language, like all kinds of crap that had nothing to do with transit, and it died.
Matt, what you got?
Nothing. Wrap that one up too.
Okay, on Facebook, there is a City of Atlanta spoof group and a MARTA spoof group.
Oh, I love the City
Join
of Atlanta
them.
spoof.
They are fantastic.
Join them. They are just outstanding. And if you
We'll
share
post
them,
links.
yeah.
Yeah, they're let me tell you why you're wrong approved.
Oh yeah, they are great. And a lot of people don't get the humor, like they don't get my humor with when I make fun of Jessica. It is the people that get mad about the posts are great. All right. My favorite bill that failed. That sounds wrong. Hate crime legislation. HB 426. Chuck F. Stration.
This was, I think we talked about it, the increased penalties. It wasn't a different code section. It was charging people with the same crime, but punishing them differently.
Right.
Based on protected classes.
Yep. That one needed to die. Like, I think we spent a fair amount of time talking about that one.
Kill it with fire.
Right?
It'll be back. It'll be back.
I'm sure.
No, it's perpetual. It'll be back again. All right, some good bills.
The list is short.
That failed. Auditing tax credits for benefit. John Albers.
Yeah, he just wanted to have the state do like a cycle. We have so many tax credits that we offer. He wanted to see if we're getting our return on investment by what they're putting back in the state. So he had set up like a schedule over the next 5 years of how to audit all of them through the Department of Audits and provide reports to the General Assembly so that they could decide if they're worthy or not. Of course, special treatment for special interest could not be regulated, so it died.
Yeah, that made way too much sense. Matt, where you at?
Nope. Good.
All right, private property rights for aesthetics. We've covered HB 302, Vance Smith.
I wanted this one to pass.
So did I.
But they're going to do a study committee on it, which is good because they always do study committees with the intended result. Like they decide what they want to do and then they have a study committee about it. So there may be some movement on this next year, which is good.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and also, this bill has nothing to do with pet land.
This bill also has nothing to do with density. No, we covered this. Look, it's the only thing is aesthetics and applies universal codes that are universal as far as mechanical and things like that. All right, treating all students equally. Senate Bill 161, Lindsey Tippins.
So this is one of those where you're going to be like, why do we need a law? But if you're going to keep the current law in the books, I think we need this law. Currently, for students who have GPA calculations and they're taking AP classes, if you get a B, a C, or an F in your AP class, you get an extra half point on your GPA for your regular courses, or your regular average. But A students don't get that extra half a point. That is something that we have legislated. The students who excel don't get the extra point. This bill would have given the A students the extra point and made them equal to their loser friends. And the legislature didn't let it pass.
Because everybody's special.
Right.
And A students should have to work harder, apparently.
They probably have a bunch of loser kids in school.
Okay, I want you guys to stretch and pat yourselves on the back. Kegel's Law. SB 59 failed.
Woo.
This would have made Georgia a two-party consent state to record conversations, which would have made investigative reporting dead in the state of Georgia. Jessica, how happy are you on a scale of 1 to Snoopy dancing?
Out of all the bills that did not pass, I was most happy about this one because for so many reasons, but it's wonderful. I'm so happy.
Matt, as somebody who has been an investigative reporter for like 15 minutes, what do you think? Okay.
The audio cut out. I didn't hear anything you said.
Just leave it. Just leave it.
It's way better that way.
Yeah. Just leave
Yeah, the silence in your chair creaking.
Yeah, it's way better.
It's like
Just
crickets.
Like, what'd he say? It's great.
Just leave it.
All right, you, Dave.
You just add that to any question I have. It's just you, Dave.
I've said that a lot to Dave on the phone this week.
All right. Well, we've covered some of the heaviest hitters. I know we didn't get to our normal silly stories and all that, but we thought that it was really important to get to these bills as the legislature goes home and leaves the taxpayers of Georgia safe for 8 more months. Jessica, closing thoughts?
I'm pass.
Matt, I know you're champing at the bit over some thing that you've been Wyoming versus Herrera.
Yeah, it's just some general housekeeping as far as
housekeeping. Hold on, he wants to back up and tell Dave and I we were wrong on an episode he wasn't present for.
No,
he should show up for that.
No, it's not that you're wrong. It was explanations as to why things were done certain ways. But those explanations are like that Wyoming versus Herrera thing. Like that's something I'll really have to unpack. It'll take a few minutes. That's a lot more than a closing thought should be. So I'll save that for next week.
I'm going to close with, we have a lot of great stuff coming up. The bill that was dropped on Sine Die or Sine Die on the ethics board, we have a lot to say about that. I assure you, the single member of the Fourth Estate on this little triumvirate has a lot to say about that, and we will get to it. And there's a lot to unpack about these bills as they get signed by the governor. So just because legislative session, God, I can't talk tonight, is done, doesn't mean we are. There's a lot of stuff to unpack, and we certainly appreciate every one of you out there. And please share us, rate us, and tell your friends to listen.
Suggest it. Don't tell them what to do.
No way. Tell them what to do.
No, demand it.
Yes, demand it. They're freeloading anyway.
And your
communist I'm on the show with.
Yeah, if your significant other does not listen, withhold until they listen.
My wife doesn't listen.
Yeah, mine either.
I'm not withholding. Sorry, dude.
Oh, hell no.
Obviously, look at all your kids.
And in fact, if anybody here is listening, you may already be pregnant.
Right.
No, just go ahead and grab your spouse's phone and download the podcast for us. Give us a rating. That'd be great. So, for Matt Lowe, Jessica Szilagyi, I'm Dave Roberts. We'll talk to you next week.
Later.